listened to her talk on the Medicine Buddha yet, please do. She really, it's part of her heart practice, and it was perfect that she was able to do that for all of us. June 28th is the next all-day sit. Please come. It's so wonderful. Part of, I mean, being at Tassajara, is to enter a place of practice so deeply because it's been entered so many times by so many people, even with the burned down Zendo. It just got moved into another space, but you can feel the practice, and it's enlightening. And we create a Zendo here in the chapel, and we create a Zendo at Open Sky. And in a day long, you can really allow your body to settle in a different way. And then we'll do it at Pepperwood too in September. Practice matters in this crazy birth, death life. Being able to sit down on the ground, upright and present with other human beings is just, I mean, it's not better than any other practice. It just happens to be the one that we all eat. You're anything like me stumbled into. And then, except so many young people were just telling stories about, it's always that place like, how did I end up here? Am I going to stay? What am I going to do? What's my life about? But having just some place to orient, it's a real gift. You want to say something about Barbara?
Yeah, Barbara Spade.
Can you guys hear online?
Our Dharma Sangha sister. There's a card for her here. Barbara has been Barbara's in hospice care right now. She was in the hospital a couple of weeks ago. She has been living with cancer, and was in the hospital a couple of weeks ago and made the decision to come home and be at home with her in her refuge and with her birds at her bird feeders out the window. And I saw her yesterday. She deeply knows and feels the holding and love of the Sangha. She asked me to say that. She is not up for visitors. And really wanted me to convey how much she feels held and connected to the Sangha and how much that means to her. And my experience of her yesterday was that she was very calm and very clear, and still sparkling. And she's being very well tended to by hospice and by her dear friend, sister Darla, and 24-hour care. Is being made as comfortable as she can be. She's having a hard time with breath. So.
May I just add to that? Many of you know we're good friends, and she conveyed to me she is completely at peace, does not have one iota of doubt of where she is right now. And what's so powerful for me is I'm holding the grief of losing her. And at the same time, many of you know my dear wife, Eliane, on Saturday was ordained as an interfaith chaplain in what was the most joyful, most light-filled ceremony and celebration I've experienced in years. So holding both the joys and the sorrows, and so grateful for Sangha. So thank you.
So that's a good lead in into before we went to Tassajara, I did the Caminata, which I joined mostly immigrant peoples, many of whom were undocumented. So a kind of real bravery to show up and do a 15-mile everyday walk in a public place. And the joys and sorrows of it, the sorrow of what's happening in our culture and the way we are treating other human beings. And what I come away from, it was just joyful. It was the way I've said it is some part of me thinks, well, you go down to Tassajara and everybody's going to be helping. I mean, everybody kept saying it's such great community. Everybody's helping. I mean, it is. It's just wonderful because it's a practice container. And then maybe some part of us, me, thinks, well, that can happen because it's a practice container. But I don't know about in the world. And I want to say that that was the kindest group of people I mean, walking 15 miles a day in the heat, and people were so kind to each other. And people just kept showing up with cold drinks and with treats, and we all fed each other. And at the end, people danced. I mean, just out of the joy of it. Uh, so there's a teaching in that. And I think at least one of them is, I think it's easy in these times to think rather disparagingly about human beings, like something mildly like, what is the matter with us? Appropriate response. But there's fundamental goodness, and it's just true. And we enacted it together, and it's enacted at Tassajara, and we enact it here in Sangha, but we enacted it on the hot streets of walking through Napa County, which is a lot of really rich houses and a lot of every place, industrial and open spaces, and then walking down into Vallejo and all the towns along there, and then walking down into the Bay Area, which I couldn't do because I was going to Tassajara. People are good. It's an affirmation of just to be alive is enough. And what are we doing? We're remembering who we truly are and enacting it in each thought, word, and deed. And death makes it very clear that don't waste this life. Pay attention.
And there's a great 3-minute local news piece about the march that's on our website. I put it up. And Chris is featured 2 minutes in, being your joyful son.
Yeah.
It's perfect,
Wonderful.
along with all the photos you sent, which are also beautiful
Yeah.
on the website.
And I want you to know that I don't have any ego investment in it, or hardly any, because mostly the whole thing is just greatly mysterious to me, and I just keep trying to show up. So anyway, but thank you. So then the Caminata, and then going to Tassajara, and then then Barbara and the joys and the sorrows. I've known Barbara for a long time, and she lost her son. I mean, Barbara's had tragedy in her life, and she's been transformed by it. That's what to me is she didn't. I mean, I don't want to say she didn't waste her life, because she didn't have any choice. I mean, she just got what she got, but she's living it. She's birthing, deathing it, and it's very moving. And then on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, I kind of feel this role of who are we? Where are we? What are we doing? We're going to go and set up the Jizo Peace exhibit at the Sebastopol Center for the Arts, and bring all the little Jizos. Here's the flyer for it's part of Resist, Persist, Social, quote, in injustice. It's a whole art exhibit at the Sebastopol Center for the Arts. There's an opening from 2 to 4 on Saturday, and we're hoping that we can maybe do a little ritual around it because that's the way the Jesus have been. I mean, how can the Jesus all be so kind and joyful? And we're making them for all the children that died in Gaza and Israel. It's like, how can we hold all of this simultaneously? And maybe we'll be able to figure out a time when the Sangha can go together. We'll just see. You want to say anything in addition to that?
I feel as though the Jiso ceremony that we did at Tassajara really supported everything. I mean, it supported everybody in the valley, and Chris did an amazing job of gathering the right people together so that everyone was included. And it felt like it was very supportive for what we're doing next.
It's
Yeah,
true.
I feel that it's just like a continuous stream. So, so we'll install it tomorrow, and Saturday will be the first day for a month. So if you can't come on Saturday, it's through July 26th.
Jizo is such a great, Jizo is fearless. Jizo, it's like, oh, a hell realm. How can I go and help instead of like, oh, get me out of here. Jizo just like, well, here I am. And there's a joyfulness to Jizo. Again, it's that none of this stuff makes sense. How can you carry this immense sadness and suffering, and also there's joy in the center of it? So maybe that takes us to. So bodhisattvas. It hadn't. I'm sort of feeling my way with all of this because bodhisattvas is just the whole container of Mahayana Buddhism, and we've been doing the archetypal kind of high bodhisattva deities. And when I was working on my talk for Tassajara, which was about fearlessness, rolling out of Jizo, I found a Jataka tale that for some, it just, I'm enchanted by it, and I wanted to do it, give it in a lecture at Tassajara, and there wasn't time. So guess where I brought it? And then once I decided to bring it here, it occurred to me, well, Jataka tales are all about the Buddha being a bodhisattva and all of his lifetimes as a bodhisattva leading up to becoming a Buddha. So it seems to me that it's kind of a perfect gift of we're doing high bodhisattvas, but this one's on the ground. These are the early stories of Buddha being a monkey and a crow and a rat, and it's like this is bodhisattva activity is happening all around us all the time, and I'm going to focus on the Jataka tales today and on Thursday, and I have two books. One is Rafe Martin of Joe and Erica lineage. Before Buddha was Buddha, learning from the Jataka tales. We did Jataka tales. I can't remember when. It was a while ago. So some of you were here for it. Some of you weren't. And I'm going to call on Rafe this time today. And then what I was going to do, but I'll wait until Thursday because it's longer. This is another book called The Jataka's Birth Stories of the Bodhisattva. And there's some great, I wanted to read you from here, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to do that Thursday. I'm going to call forward Rafe. You ready? Preface. Just like us, the Buddha had difficulties. This is very good news, right? That's why I love this tradition. Just like us, the Buddha had difficulties. The Jataka tales are ancient stories found in both the Pali Canon and the Sanskrit traditions. recounting the many past lives and ongoing spiritual work of Shakyamuni Buddha on his way to his final birth as the Prince Siddhartha Gautama. Rafe says, I have lived with and have been moved as well as encouraged and inspired by the Jataka Tales for many years. I first encountered them well before I ever began Buddhist practice, in my case, Zen practice, back in college in the mid-60s when I first read Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. I bet other people know Joseph Campbell. They touched me deeply. They made Zen and Buddhism human. It's just so great being down at Tassajara. And I'm remembering in particular talking to one young man who just admitted how much he just loved reading Dogen. And, he loves all this, it's just a lot of smart people come to Zen because they really love all the sutras. And I do too. But these are like embodied stories. You can't figure this. You can study it, you can love it, but you have to embody it and live it. Instead of philosophy or the austere loneliness of early meditation retreats called sesshin in the Zen tradition, I found at the heart of these tales a person who tried hard and had a great aspiration to live a life of wisdom and compassion, yet simultaneously found he had a long way to go. Anybody identify with him? You want to put your hand up? You want to do confession? No, it's like Bruce said to me the other day, we were talking, my husband, it's like some of us have been doing this for a really long time. And in the beginning, it was like, well, I'm going to get enlightened. I think a lot of people left because we didn't get enlightened after the first 10 years, whatever we thought that was. And it's really humbling to look around and see that all of us are still very human. None of us, you wouldn't necessarily pick us out and go, wow, that looks like a shining bodhisattva to me. You can feel people's intention, but we all just still look pretty human. I think this is you could say that's the good news and the bad news. The Buddha became a person to me, someone with a history, someone I could take as a guide. I found this vision of commitment and unfolding depth encouraging. The tales helped me to continue my own practice despite difficulties and challenges. As a Zen teacher now myself, Rafe, I led several unique retreats each year about Jataka. In them, we find the Buddha facing issues, dealing with difficulties, making tough choices, doing his work, falling down and getting back up, nothing special or fancy, just the continuing effort of spiritual practice. That's it. This is it. Buddhist tradition holds the Buddha himself told all the Jataka tales. His, quote, birth stories, which, by the way, is the essential meaning of Jataka, quickly became popular and were sculpted, painted, carved, inscribed, written, retold, and dramatized throughout Buddhist Asia. So there are cave paintings, there are dramas, because all of this was early, it was oral. So that's the way it was transmitted, the early. So it was like when we go to the movies that people went to dramatizations of the Jataka tales. The tales make it clear that to be like the Buddha, we shouldn't imitate the finished product, but just sit calmly with we shouldn't imitate the finished product and just sit calmly with a half smile on our face as our life passes by. Life will just keep whacking you. Have you noticed? Uh-huh. Rather like him or her, we should get up and do the work of facing up to and working with our life's challenges. Rather than emulating the serene guy on the altar, the finished product of all of those lifetimes of effort, we learn from Jatakas to be the still unknown Buddhas we each already are. We're all a Buddha, waking up to be a Buddha. And we look and feel just like human beings. This isn't about getting over ourselves. It's about sitting deeply and awakening and blossoming right in the center of these selves. A note on the linguistic conventions in the Buddhist tradition. When referring to Shakyamuni Buddha in his life prior to the one in which he awakened fully to become the Buddha, he is referred to as the Bodhisattva with a capital B. A Bodhisattva, lowercase, would be anyone on the path of awakening. It must be us. A bodhisattva, lowercase, would be anyone on the path of awakening, acting with wisdom and compassion for the sake of all. The word Buddha is said by some to have the same root as, I didn't know this, to bud. Isn't that nuts? Ooh. A Buddha, lowercase, is then a budding being, one in whom all potential has opened fully. Deborah is also part of race lineage. The Buddha, capitalized, refers to the historic person born as Siddhartha Gautama, who became the enlightened one. And it's all happening simultaneously. And something happened and nothing happened. And you're all already in way over your heads. But you were the minute you got born. And the minute you're born, you're going to die. So you might as well not waste this life and figure out some way to live it with some clarity and intention and compassion, because a lot of what blossoms in this, of course, is compassion towards the self, because you're sure not going to be able to be compassionate towards somebody else if you can't find compassion here for the full spectrum, all-inclusive being that we each are. Okay, so I'm finally going to get to tell my Jataka tale. You ready? Okay, it's Jataka 140, and it's called The Crow Birth. But I suggested down at Tassajara, if you've been down there, that it might just as easily be about blue jays, because blue jays are really kind of the little demons down at Tassajara. They wouldn't even let us eat outside this time because they were so aggressive. So we'll say crow, but it's you can use your imagination. Okay. Once in the past, the Bodhisattva came into being in the womb of a crow. Of course, now who was it who was telling? Somebody down there who's Sue Hasari was telling me that crows don't have wombs. It was an egg. We're already arguing with our story, and she's really accurate. Anyway, if she was here, she would tell all of us. But because she's not here, we'll just stay with a bodhisattva came into being in the womb of a crow. I think that's cool. Now, in those days, just as in these days, a crow would make its living however it could, scavenging and foraging inside the walls of the city and outside in the villages, the forests, and the fields. One morning, the king's high priest left the city early. He went out by the eastern gate and down by the holy river, the Ganges, to bathe. When he had bathed, he put on fresh, white muslin robes. He adorned himself with sweet scents. He really gussied himself up. He set a garland of jasmine flowers about his neck and returned towards the city. There were two crows sitting on the gate. This must be about my crow nature. One crow said to the other, I have an idea. I shall let some droppings fall on the shiny head of that Brahmin. See him coming from the river, freshly washed in his fine robes? Do you know this part of your nature? What said the second crow? You would do what? This Brahmin is a lord. If his anger is aroused, he could cause the destruction of all the crows. The first crow shrugged his shoulders. I can't help myself, he said. I have to do it. This delights me. Come on, you know this part of yourself, don't you? Well, then, said the second crow, we'll see what happened. And he flew away. Sure enough, just as the king's high priest came below the gate, that crow, setting forth into flight, let some droppings fall right on the Brahmin's shiny head. The priest looked up, saw the source of his humiliation, a black-winged crow. Hmm. Trying to see if I skipped any part here. I'm just going to keep going and see what happens. Now, at that time, the story continues, a certain serving girl was earning her wages by guarding the rice outside the granary sheds, not far from the king's elephant stables. She had spread the rice in the sun to dry, and there she sat in the door of the shed guarding it. The day was hot, and it wasn't long before the girl fell asleep. A certain long-haired goat wandering about noticed that the girl was off her guard. He came up and began to nibble and chew on the rice. I just love these. I just think we're all goats and crows and the girl. And at the sound of his snuffling and chewing, the girl woke up and shooed him away. She sat herself down once again, and once again she fell asleep. The goat came back and continued to nibble and chew on the rice. Of course, what else is a goat going to do? The girl woke up a second time, and a second time shooed him away. And it all happened a third time exactly as before. And then the girl said to herself, we say to ourselves in situations like this, something like this goat returning again and again will eat up half the rice, and then I am sure to lose my wages. This goat is causing me problems. She went to a nearby cooking fire and took out a long smoldering stick. Holding the stick by one end, she returned to her seat by the granary shed and pretended to fall asleep. And when she heard the goat begin to nibble once more, the girl stood up. What do you think she did? She flung the burning stick, striking him on the long hair of his body, which caught fire. And with his body burning, the goat went leaping and jumping right to the elephant stables, where he rolled in a pile of straw, and the straw blazed up, and the stables caught fire, and before the fire could be put out, many of the elephants were badly burned. We're also at Tassajara, where the Zendo has been burned down, and it turns out somebody lit the fire down there, so there's something appropriate here. The king's elephant doctors could find no cure for the wounds on the elephant's back, and this they reported to the king. The king was distressed, for he was very fond of his elephants, and he said to his high priest, "Teacher, do you know any cure for the wounds on the elephant's back?" "Yes, your majesty, I do," replied the king's high priest. "Crow's fat." "Crow's fat?" said the king. "Yes," explained the Brahmin. "It is an ancient remedy handed down through the generations. Only you will have to slaughter a great many crows if you want enough fat to heal the wounds on your elephant's back." They're looking for revenge, because the crows pooped on his head. It's going to get revenge. Slaughter all those others that caused me trouble. Any of this sound familiar? "Very well," said the king. "Let the crows be killed and their fat obtained." The orders were given, and on that day a great slaughter of crows began in the city of Varanasi. From the temple roofs and the branches of the banyan trees, the king's archers shot them down. Black bodies tumbled and fell. Heaps of dead crows could be seen in every street. They were gathered in carts and taken to the king's kitchens, where they were boiled in great cauldrons. So little fat was obtained as to be of almost no use at all. But still the orders continued. The crows of the city were to be shot and killed. Young and old, male and female, large and small, a great fear was born in the crows of Varanasi, the fear of death. A lot of fear in our land right now. The story now changes scenes and takes us to the forest. At that time, the Bodhisattva, with a capital B, lived in the forest cemetery. One night, one of the city crows came and told the Bodhisattva what was happening in Varanasi, and the Bodhisattva reflected, "Besides myself, there is no other who can cure my clansmen, my kinsmen of their fear." So the Bodhisattva immediately took responsibility. It wasn't something happening out there. It was, how can I be of help? Which is what little Jizo does. He flew up into the sal tree where, alighting on a branch, he called to mind the paramitas. So he immediately called on the teachings. And when he called on the paramitas, the teachings of the Bodhisattva, what came forward to him was loving kindness. Selecting loving kindness as his guide, he flew through the forest, over the gates of the city, right to the king's palace, where he entered by an open window. So he didn't hesitate. He immediately turned towards it, called on the teachings and practice, and entered. Alighting before the king's empty seat, he hid himself beneath it. The king was just entering the chamber as a serving man came forward to catch and remove the crow, but the king said, "No, let him be." The Bodhisattva, recovering himself once more, coming back to himself, remembering his bodhisattvaness, fearlessly affirming loving kindness and goodness, stepped out from under the king's throne and met the king. So there's something in this about how the crow was hidden and could have remained hidden, but made the choice to step out and be seen. This is, I mean, part of this resonates as the Kamanata I did, is people chose to not hide, to step out and to be seen and to meet what needed to be met. "Your Majesty," said the Bodhisattva, "I too am a king." So instead of taking one down, met the king just face to face, eye to eye, not above, not below, not blaming. It's just, I'm right here, meeting you, and said, "A great fear has been born in my people, the fear of death. Is it not true, Your Majesty, that a king should do everything in his power for the well-being and safety of his people?" The king was amazed to be addressed by this creature, but he nodded, and the Bodhisattva continued. It also occurs to me as I read this, is one of the things we all keep wishing, is that somebody would talk to the king, who is our current president, who would come out from the hidingness of power and fear and just find a way to say with loving kindness, but also fearlessness, you might want to consider this. The Bodhisattva continued, "Your Majesty, the king's high priest has fallen under the influence of anger. He has spoken an untruth. He has told you that crow's fat will heal the wounds on your elephant's back. But the truth is that crows have almost no fat at all." Told the simple truth, was fearless, just simple truth. The king was so moved that he ordered a royal seat to be given to the king of the crows, fresh water in a golden bowl and sweet rice in a golden dish. The Bodhisattva leapt up on the seat, he nibbled and he drank. The king addressed him and said, "Wise one, tell me, how is it that crows have almost no fat?" So there's a relationship that's been established here between the king and the crow. The crow is no longer this one down. The king is asking for help. The Bodhisattva answered, "The reason is simply, and I shall explain." And he says, "With a heart forever anxious and the whole world at our backs, because of that, there is no ounce of fat for my relatives, the crows." We're anxious. You don't like us. You cast us out. That's why we don't have any fat. We're scared all the time. And then, do you know what the Bodhisattva did? He instructed the king in the precepts. You never know who's going to teach you about the precepts. Blue jays might teach you about the precepts. And the crow asked for the end of the slaughter of the crows. He asked for protection for all the creatures. And the king agreed, and in addition, he offered the Bodhisattva a kingdom. But what does a crow want with a kingdom? He gave it back. It's not into power and position. The king ordered that a measure of rice be cooked and served to the remaining crows in the city, while to the Bodhisattva he ordered a meal fit for the king. And the Bodhisattva ate and drank. That's really sweet. That it was okay to eat well. He didn't say, no, just give me scraps. But he didn't want this as some permanent state. Bidding farewell to the king, he flew back to the forest cemetery, where he gathered about him all the crows of the forest, the villages and fields, as well as the crows of the city, and he said to them, pay attention now. See how one unguarded impulse rising in the mind causes so much suffering for many. Study your unguarded impulses and the way it ripples. And then he spoke this verse. Quivering, wavering, this mind, hard to guard, hard to protect. The wise one makes it straight like the fletcher, the arrow shaft. So I looked up fletching and arrow shafts. Fletching is the fin-shaped stabilization device attached to arrows. We kind of know what that is. A fletcher is a person who attaches fletchlings to the shaft of arrows. So how do we stabilize? This practice is a practice of stabilization. So here's just a little bit of the commentary I found. Unguarded impulses. The crows urged to do mischief. The king's high priest wanted revenge. The goat just wants to eat the rice. The serving girl can't stay awake and reacts to the goat. The king wants his elephants to be healed. The Bodhisattva was the only one who just stopped. And called on practice and allowed loving kindness to arise. And came out of hiding with the king and met the king, not from a place of hierarchy or rank, but just person to person. Here's when we were down there at Tassajara, we were studying Blanche Hartman's book, It's for a Boundless Life, and here's what Blanche has to say about fearlessness. Do we turn towards difficulties and take care of them? Do we turn towards the fears and be with them with kindness and gentleness? Do we turn towards those who are having difficulty and see if there is a way that we can help them? Do we turn towards ourselves when we are in difficulty and give ourselves encouragement and care? Blanche says, don't think fearlessness means not ever experiencing fear, but not being overcome by fear, just noticing. Yes, there's fear, and maybe turning towards it and actually breathing with it and feeling it, allowing it to arise and to subside and not allowing it to chase us around, making us run off and hide or distract ourselves with foolish activity. How do we distract ourselves with foolish activities? So some part of me loves this story because the crow just wanted to see what happened if it went and pooped on the king's head, on the priest's head. I mean, we're doing things like, little things, small. It's like, if I poke that? What happens if I don't do that? I mean, that's how we learn. We fall down and we get up. But there's also, I think there's something here to investigate in terms of how we just keep poking at life in the same old way and then being surprised when we get the same old response. Looks different, but it's the same old response.
Hmm.
The Buddha was a crow. The Buddha Bodhisattva waking up in all of us is all the mischievous, the confused, the fearful, the revengeful, the angry, it's all material for bodhisattvas. One more, want to go back here? Can't remember what it is. Oh, see how one unguarded impulse arising in the mind causes so much suffering for so many.
Hmm.
Quivering, wavering, this mind, hard to guard, hard to protect. The wise one makes it straight like the Fletcher, the arrow shaft. What's this story ignite or teach in you? We got a few minutes, we'll just stay together.